record this. All right, hello. So we're going to talk about the NASA Interplanetary Initiative with the community rankings. We're at Group 5, consisting of James Johnson, myself, Victor Magana, and then Samuel Mills. For our objectives, we're going to go ahead and cover the community ranking criteria and process that we went through, along with the communities and where they ranked at with the score system used, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up with summary in regards to everything we covered. So the communities that we're going to be ranking is going to be Lompoc, California, by James, and then Leavenworth, Kansas by Sam, and Kingman, Arizona by myself. And the community ranking criteria that we went through is that we highlight the main areas that we want to consider for NASA. We decided on 10 categories specifically. We did add a few subcategories, and not all that really meant is if it covered something along with power, that is, we associated subcategories as far as wind, solar, nuclear, stuff like that. We added a point value system where we went from 5 to 1, 5 being the highest score you can receive. That's a hallmark type of community for everybody to kind of strive to, and 1 meaning they need further research, they need further resources, so on and so forth. And the scale kind of varied, and we have a form for that. So we evaluate each category across all 3 communities without repeating the point value in order to make sure, because there's only 3 of us, we can kind of differentiate the scores and make sure that they had a true value in comparison to each community. And we summarize all our scores, reviewed them, and we average out between all 3 of us, and then whichever one averaged out the highest ended up being our top grossing ranked community. So we'll go over the communities here in a second. So the communities are going to be ranked, and James is going to go over that.
All right. So with the community rank system, we have the breakdown that Victor was just talking about, and it shows our actual scores. As you can see, Lompoc consistently came third, while we had Kingman coming second, and Leavenworth, Kansas, coming as the most desirable space for NASA facility. So for Lompoc, some of the benefits that Lompoc did have that would make it desirable for a NASA facility is that it is located in a great location. It's located in Central California, just outside of Santa Barbara. The area has a consistent weather pattern between 70 and 40 degrees all year long. So there wouldn't be like any major concerns about space launchings or any problems with the climate and being able to launch things. Lompoc is actually has pretty good transportation that it uses. The PCH highway, or the #1 highway in California, as well as I believe the Interstate 10 go through Lompoc. So that plus Vandenberg Air Force Base being there would make it a good place to be, relatively safe for in case of a state emergency, because those things we work to its advantage. Lompoc also spends a lot of its budget on policing and the fire departments, so that also adds to the relative emergency management that they would be able to contain or handle. They were also they have also hosted NASA events before, with the recent one being Inside Mars mission to Mars. Also, the major thing that works for it is Vandenberg Air Force Base, which is located in it. In case there was a facility built in Lompoc, they would be able to assist them with any launchings and things like that, because for a very long time, Vandenberg Air Force Base has launched missiles and satellites. So I would assume that the facility will be able to work and integrate with Vanden Air Force Base. Some of the struggles that Lompoc does have is namely education, government, and crime. Lompoc's educational system underperforms at the elementary and middle school levels, which is relatively low in comparison to the rest of the state. Lompoc, because of its position as a smaller city in the state that is surrounded by bigger cities, has high turnover rates in their city government, which makes them a little bit less stable. They also have higher crime rates per capita than most cities in the state, paired with a high homeless rate. Lompoc is not the perfect ideal for a NASA facility right now because they are still a vulnerable population. If Lompoc wants to acquire a NASA facility, we will suggest that the government becomes a little bit more stable with lasting leadership, as well as it raises educational levels in the city. I believe that if the educational levels are raised in the city, that should also help out with poverty and homeless and overall crime. The other cities on this list perform better in these areas. That's why we chose Lompoc as the third choice. Next up is Kingman, Arizona.
So for Kingman, Arizona, the advantageous areas that it had is that actually has a $3 billion project for power, for renewable energy, power data center that is actually being developed. It's a solar panel, solar powered aspect for it. For its location, as far as where it's regionally located on the north end of Arizona, it has main highway routes going through it. Las Vegas is relatively close. The Colorado River is relatively close. The climate is relatively acceptable and moderate there. There's not anything drastic as far as natural disasters affecting that area due to where it's located and as far as the temperature wise. So for the environment, it also helps out that it doesn't have any Superfund sites located on there. And then also there has clean water and has a plan for that as well. The government does very well at making sure they stay at the top of their policies and forecast what is kind of being anticipated for the city growth. So they implement good policies for that to make sure it's beneficial. Areas that they could improve on, higher education attainment, as far as the type of programs that are available from either the external campus facilities from the universities of like U of A and then also Northern Arizona University. Their programs are very limited to what's available in the community, so therefore it doesn't expand, allowing for people to kind of go into different career paths. So therefore it limits the career diversity also for the community. Communities are very industrialized because of that. So a lot of the careers that people would be going into primarily for Kingman is going to be into management and also for sales. So transportation on there, they are improving the routes in order to expedite the amount of transportation. And in order to kind of stabilize, also they're very limited to a very small airport. It's not a functional airport, or commercial stuff is mostly for business and companies to kind of drop off their logistical aspects. So that is a good thing, but it is not for people to travel at their leisure and stuff like that. But in order for NASA to kind of go into that, maybe they should look into further research would be like the public safety for the police station. They are going through an accreditation process they're trying to do to the state. However, there's no adjacent public safety agencies as far as there's no FBI office there. It got relocated a few years back. So as far as expansion and growth and with people, that might be a concern just to make sure they have it set up. And then also their cultural investment. They have started a youth advisory commission, but the culture is very heavily routed into Route 66 and also the railroad, and the youth kind of doesn't connect with that. So therefore they're trying to expand that, which also ties into higher education capabilities as far as diversifying in the career paths as the youth is changing and the social norms change. They're trying to tap into that so they can keep the resources and keep the people in that community. So if they kind of fall within those, and that'll probably be something considerable for NASA to consider. So we'll go over to our number one community.
All right, number one, Leavenworth, Kansas. So its major advantage were its power and energy. They have wind, gas lines, and nuclear power plants nearby that they could utilize all three of those energy supplies. Second, they have transportation. Being located close to Kansas City, there's many highways, industrial railways, and airports, including one within Leavenworth that can be used by either civilians or military. Another advantage is the military and federal government presence. They have Fort Leavenworth in the city that brings an abundance of federal employees, and also an FBI field office located in Kansas City. For improvements would have to be on the facility. Since they're located in Kansas, the weather have extreme weather and winter storms, and also tornadoes. There's an abundance of Superfund sites that could affect where they can actually build a facility. There's 21 of those. And another issue would be the crime rate. It's 3.7% higher than a national average. So further research that they would need to build a facility would be public safety. With the increased number of people moving to the city, there's going to be a probable shortage of police and fire. Since there already is a low crime rate, the ratio to population and police population isn't as high as it should be. For policy environment, one big issue for NASA building a facility is going to be the high property tax for the state of Kansas. Next, we'll summarize what we did today. And starting off, we did the community ranking criteria. This could change over the next 3 years, so it'd be possible or be a good idea to actually redo this if the building would be delayed a couple years. And then we went through each city and the 3 through first on our ranking process. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you.